My name is Reily Baluyot, and I'm part of the Australia Award Scholarship Cohort, batch 2019. Graduated from Monash University with a degree of Master of Leadership, specializing in organizational learning. And in 2020, I was also the president of the Philippine Society for Talent Development, also known as Philippine Society for Training and Development. And this is a story of regeneration that I would like to share with you because a lot of Australia Award scholars were also involved in the process. We'll call this story Leading the Filipino Trainers During the COVID-19 pandemic. Just like any other organization, private man, not NGO or government, PSCD also had its fair share of being blown out of the water because of the pandemic. So what we did was to simply think about a strategy that everyone will be able to remember and everyone will be able to rally behind. And that's the strategy of let's help now and then gain later for when the market is actually ready to open. And that's what we did. Just like any other good strategy, we look at a structure. What we did was we created the fastest framework for an organization just like PSTD na sobrang bureaucratic kasi so many decision makers from the board of directors or board of trustees to the professional team to the committee members. So what we did was, in order for us to be able to pivot quickly, we looked at the 5 most important themes or groups in PSTD, and that's marketing, research, membership programs, and digital. And all of those are supported by the board, by the professional team within the strategy of help now, gain later. Just like any other strategy, of course, we had to start with an end in mind, and that end was the following group objectives. And the strategy was simple. We just wanted to get PSTD to survive during the pandemic simply because it was not easy, surviving during the pandemic. Yung before nga it's hard now, what more during the pandemic. So these were our objectives. And the leadership of PSTD during that time, a lot of them were actually Australia Award scholars. So in 2020, I was the president of PSTD. Elvita Robal was the vice chairperson. Adrian Robles was the chair for good governance. Roel Mariano, eventually as part of that Oplan Hope group, that task force, he was the head of membership. Jose was the head of research and publications. And Marby was the head of digital transformation or digital. So what were we able to achieve with that Oplan Hope group, that task force that we were able to put together to decide faster, to strategize better in relation to PSD. Oplan Hope was able to actually create a good following of international and local speakers to be able to do 53 free learning sessions across 6,800 live Zoom attendees. And these are your trainers, your teachers, your educators, guidance counselors, HR personnel, libre. Like we were able to gather so many thought leaders all around the world. And siguro maybe it's because of the pandemic also that they were also trying to see what they can do. Help was there when help was needed. And they were very generous in sharing their expertise. And in total, we were able to produce during that time 1.3 million minutes of learning. And it gave a lot of inspiration for people from different industries to actually learn how to transition from face-to-face training to digital training or virtual instructor-led. And that was the trend that PSTD set in 2020. To the point that we were able to gather a group of teachers in June 5. We call that program Kamusta Ka Teacher. Around 1,000 teachers who were able to attend it. Just so we will know in those sessions, how were they during the pandemic? And these are some of the responses that we got from them. This group was led by also a group of Australia Award scholars. So Naomi, Moon, Maricar, Yona, Nikki, Aisa, and Carlo. All of these Australia Award scholars are teachers, and they were there to help PSTD in the process. To the point that PSTD was able to generate knowledge out of the 1,000 teachers. These were some of the responses. Like 1 out of 3 teachers feels that they are ready to resume classes. These were their sources of stress. 1 out of 4 teachers is not confident to teach come start of classes. Ayan, tas ito yung mga reasons kung bakit. And we also were able to gather information on what were the teachers doing when so that they can manage their own stresses. This is very important for us to know so that other teachers will also benefit from the learning. We were also able to find out what their training needs were. Kasi nga, we are a society of trainers, diba? And talent development practitioners. So since teachers are also essentially trainers, they're educators, we wanted to know how they were and what were their training needs. We published this to different groups of teachers. We shared this with the government. We shared the statistics, ganyan, and we also, of course, cited the people who were part of this program, which is, we call them the PSTD PNA Sprint Core Group. Those are simple things that we did when we gathered just in a few days of meeting. Tapos these data gathering, when we were able to gather around 1,000 plus teachers, these only happened for 2 hours. The amount of data that we got was significant. That's one of the milestones that PSTD was able to do during the pandemic. PSTD was also able to transition their face-to-face learning and development programs to actual virtual instructor-led sessions. And this is now what PSTD is using in order for it to survive financially. Dati hindi naman marunong si PSTD mag-digital. Ngayon, because of the so many trainings that we were able to do for free, we were also able to build the muscle to facilitate virtually while exciting people to still not be bored by the virtual learning platforms. And another important milestone was in that process, because we were collaborating with some of the international speakers. Jose, who was the head of the research and development of PSTD in 2020, when he was in Melbourne, he was able to meet with me, the officers of the Australia Institute of Training Development. And in 2020, because we involved them also in the talks that we did for free for the nation, they signed a memorandum of understanding with them for the very first time for us to have more collaborative work with them in the future. So that's also very good because international partnership. And one of the biggest accomplishments that PSTD was able to do in the last 2 years, 2020 and now 2021, is it was able to create two of the biggest attended national conventions in the history of the organization. The first one was called DigiTalent, or Lead with Agility and Resilience. So that was last November 2020. That was attended by around 500 talent development practitioners. But now, not only was the 2021 National Convention, the Future Forward National Convention, attended by more than 500, they were attended by 600 plus. It was also able to gather a lot of sponsors, which was one of the reasons why PSTD right now is actually thriving financially. Last year, 2020, sobrang negative parate si PSTD, and it's so hard because our source of revenue was training. Now that we know how to do a lot of these digitally, not only are we able to reach more people, we are also able to generate more revenue for PSTD. And effective August 2021, PSTD is now back on the income track. So it's now able to again generate enough income for it to sustain its next couple of months, and of course pay back its debts from the pot that we borrowed money. The other thing that we are very, very happy about was we did not let go of any professional staff of PSTD in the process. While the executive director of PSTD resigned in 2021, she did so for two reasons. First one is that because she was setting up her own social enterprise, and she also wanted to help out PSTD with its expenses, knowing that executive directors usually have the highest salary. So she tried to help PSTD para hindi naman we will not keep on bleeding financially. But even without her presence or without her help during 2021, PSTD was still able to tremendously achieve a lot. And a lot of these things we're very proud of because it also generated a lot of accomplishments of that Oplan Hope task force. And I will not discuss all of these to you, but these were things that we were able to achieve along the way simply because we were intentional with the strategy of Help Now Gaming. So I hope I was able to show how PSTD was able to pull through despite the odds during the pandemic. And a lot of it is because of kind-hearted and compassionate leaders, most of whom came from the Australia Awards cohort. And right now, PSTD is back, it's thriving, and it's surviving, and has a very, very bright future ahead. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to PSTD's story.